Here we go. So we went to Tulsa RIA last night, and the presenter was Greg Lehman, and he flew up to um, Tulsa to present for their RIA, and he left behind a lot of good nuggets. And can you guys see my screen? Okay. And so, and I can let Levi touch on some of this too, but there was a few things. I know I've done some 1031s from last year going into this year, probably three or four in the last 12 months, maybe five. I think three or four. And I've let a brokerage handle one of them. I've let the title company start handle them now as the intermediary. But there's a lot of different strategies you can do. But so he was just breaking down really that a lot of times real estate agents and brokers get nervous, and they're not educated on 1031s, so they really don't know how to advise their clients to do a 1031. And so his whole point was you're leaving a lot of money on the table as a broker or as a real estate agent if you're not encouraging those that especially are investors to 1031 exchange. And so the big picture, I guess, is as Uncle Sam sees selling by, no gain or loss shall be recognized on the exchange of real property held for productive use in a trade or business for an investment if such real property is exchanged solely for real property of like kind, which is to be held either for productive use or in the trade or business for an investment. And so we also, after Greg got down, we had an oil and gas guy get up and talk about how if you need a place to park money or you need a place to you're looking for more of a passive mailbox money situation, you could 1031 out of one of your properties into oil and gas and actually own that real property in oil and gas. And so they were just trying to get us where we didn't limit ourselves to thinking that if you sell a single family home, you've got to buy a single family home. Not really the case. But that your options were open to buy a piece of land or buy a garage or whatever you might be wanting to replace that property with. So it was just, he was kind of opening our eyes up to make sure we weren't limited. And in the fact that if we had a question, they were, his team was always there to answer them. And Levi, you want to touch on this? And I'd love to hear where you guys are at on like just 1031s in general. And if you've utilized them or if you are planning to utilize them. And then we can jump around on the slides because this is all stuff Greg shared with us. And I also like to know if people want to see Greg in Joplin. He's willing to come to Joplin, has a wealth of knowledge. Just want to make sure that we want him to come, basically. So I'll let Levi touch a little bit on some of his takeaways, and I can jump around the slides wherever you guys want.
So yeah, I mean, I would definitely love to have him in Joplin. I know that there was still some questions that I left unanswered from last night, but definitely wanted to respect his time with the amount of people that were there. I know Chris, I know we asked a lot of questions from our table, so I wanted to be respectful with that. But yeah, I mean, as far as 1031 exchanges, I mean, yeah, we've been doing them the last several years. But I mean, to Greg's point, I mean, we've just been doing the, basic, general, easy way to where we've just been doing, stuff straight through the title company, using the title company's third party to go through it. Didn't even really realize that, there was other companies out there, other providers that, would be able to utilize for such thing. I did know that, obviously you could buy a single family, and exchange it for multifamily, pretty much the basics of that. But, it's been here of late that, I'm learning that there's way more things to be able to 1031 exchange into, kind of like the mineral funds. You can 1031 exchange notes, as it's not as popular, but I mean, if there's somebody willing to take a note that you have, I mean, you can 1031 exchange that. We learned last night that if you do 1031 exchange in the minerals into a mineral fund, you can actually you can borrow back off of that. You can get a loan against your minerals. So that was definitely something that I was like, well, if you 1031 exchange into that, how do you pull any cash out of that? Is there any possibilities for that? Because, you know, obviously if I'm selling out of a single family and 1031 into a multifamily, I want to be able to put equity into that multifamily to where I can refinance it again and pull more cash back out of it. But I'm like, if I go 1031 into minerals, is it just straight cash flow, or is there a way to be able to 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 kind of finance back off of that? And we learned last night that the answer is yes, you can.
And real quick on that one, because if you decide that you want to look into the minerals, we'll have a contact for that. But also, like Rockford from Stout Lending was there. He says you gotta find that specific lender that will.
Yes,
So
I would agree with that. Yes.
Yeah, if you guys have questions on that, we can point you to Rockford, because Rockford can help link up with that lender. If he's not that lender, he can find it. But yeah,
Yes,
that was a good point. Leveraging that.
right. So, that's something that, I'm looking at some of our single family portfolio, and, it's just, it's making good money. It's doing well, but it's just, I want more. And so, it's kind of like, well, what multifamily aspects can we really get into at the moment? And it's like, well, I don't really see much out there at the moment. So it's like, well, the more and more I look at some oil and gas stuff, there's some oil and gas stuff that I want. And obviously, going into the mineral space, you can go into the mineral space and still be able to 1031 exchange right back out of that. So you could go from real estate, 1031 into minerals, and then 1031 out of minerals back into real estate. But like Chris said, I mean, obviously, if you're paying cash for it out of the 1031 exchange, it doesn't matter. But if you're setting your money into minerals from a 1031 exchange and you want to get a loan back out of it to take some cash off of it, but still keep the money in the minerals, there are only a select few lenders out there that will do that. But yeah, I mean, I think he did a very, very good job on his presentation, and he seemed like he had quite a bit of knowledge. I know one of the conversations we had on the way back was, wanting to figure out the strategy on a 1031 exchange out of a subject to wrap is the next conversation that we're going to be having with him, is how do you do a 1031 exchange out of a subject to wrap? So
yeah. Go ahead.
No, I'm still trying to wrap my brain around that. Is it only on the cash that you receive, or is it on the purchase contract?
Yeah. So what questions do you guys have about 1031s? Because I'd like to get a good feel of where everybody's at and questions that you might have, because I know for me, what they've done for me, building the leverage and sell some property I'd had for 20 years that, I had like $9,000 invested in, and I sold it for, 80. Well, naturally I had to do something with that equity. And the 1031 was the vehicle that allowed me to do that. But what questions do you guys have, or how do you see this could fit your business model?
I'll just say something I'll just say, ask this really quick and not, address that what you said overall. So Levi, you mentioned that you could 1031 into minerals. So my quick, simple question is that what would be the benefit to mineral? I know it's land, so you could probably capture some equity in a land purchase, but how is minerals producing quote unquote cash flow for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been investigating this space. Oh shoot, Nick, when was the fishing trip? Did we say? We said it was in October last year. I don't know if Nick.
Yeah. Late October is when that trip was.
Okay, so pretty much ever since then, I started talking to, like, if anybody's in the cartel group or wants to be in that cartel group to kind of learn some of these people, definitely talk to me, Chris, or Nick in here. But yeah, I mean, I met some people there in the cartel group, and from there, the conversation kind of sparked that it's just one of those things that's like, man, I'd love to own some oil and gas. Say I have some oil and gas in my portfolio, and so really started doing some more investigating on it since October, and pretty much consistently the legit funds that I've talked to, I mean, it's pretty much like a 12 to 15% return.
Wow.
And obviously it's mailbox money. You deposit this much, and then you're just getting this much in a check every month, and then from there, if that fund ever sells out, then you have your point basis that you're invested in that you would get paid back out on, along with the amount of money that you receive every month. So I mean, would I just go out and sell my entire portfolio and just go straight in the minerals and right off in the sunset? No. But would I go sell 10 houses off right now that may just be a little bit lesser of a quality than I want to keep? I'm kind of considering it, and maybe just going and dumping into that at the moment. Do I keep it long term? Maybe. Do I do something maybe short term, being able to 1031 exchange out of that back into potential more real estate? It's one of those things that just looking at more avenues for a vehicle to be able to move money around and keep that money cycling to where the IRS doesn't get it.
Yeah, that makes sense. What are your thoughts on if you were to buy land though, and not that it's a huge deal, but then giving up depreciation in exchange for the houses that you gave up?
Just
Yeah,
raw
I mean,
land. Are you saying
and
raw land that isn't mineral, like just raw land?
Yeah, well, any land, and maybe mineral rights only aren't subject to that, but I would say mineral rights and land equally, they don't depreciate. They can't.
Right.
yeah, I mean, I've thought a scenario, where I have a house in particular in my mind right now, to where it's like, I know I've got really good equity sitting in there, and what I can sell it for, keeping it as a rental, it's just getting to that point where it makes more sense to go ahead and just sell it. And then, it's like, okay, well, do I sell that and then go buy, 4 or 5 more rentals with the amount of cash that I'd be able to have, do a 1031 exchange there? Or it's a decent enough chunk where it's like, well, okay, do I go put that down on another like 40 or 60 acres of land and then go run some cattle on it, do some hay, whatever at that point? And I mean, obviously, they're not making more land. So,
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those situations. So I think it's how you want to diversify in that. And I mean, for me, that's kind of the way I look at it. I want to have actual, real estate that's got tenant occupied, that's paying me monthly money. And then I'd love to have, some mineral stuff in my portfolio, have a small percentage there, and then basically have that raw vacant land that's basically going to be, pretty much leisure, go, like I said, go throw cattle on it, go hay it, be able to hunt on it, just whatever at that point. Because let's be honest, historically, land's going up in value. I mean, obviously we have waves just like real estate. But I mean, it's like Nick talking about, what was it, Nick, your great grandparents or whatever, what they paid for their land and what the basis on that is now. I mean,
Right.
it's not going down.
Yeah. Well, and back to where Dustin was going with how do you feel about the depreciation type thing? I think it all depends on your goals, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because as far as cash flow goes, I mean, in the real estate that I'm messing with, most of it's all infinitive returns, right? I'm not, because I pulled all my money back out. But when you talk about like an actual, maybe cost basis versus return on your investment, you may not be getting much more than a 20 or 30%, 15-20% return anyway, but you've got all that depreciation you can put against it, but yet you've got all this active role in maintaining or whatever. On vacant land, if you're going to use cattle and stuff against it, that starts giving you your depreciation avenue of running livestock and farm use and all that kind of stuff on equipment. But when it comes to mineral rights, like you're looking for the most passive way to invest your money, to let it sit somewhere and to get that check every single month. And so you're putting it into something tangible. So it's not like the stock market or whatever, right? You still have a tangible, somewhat asset, even though it's not dirt. It's like the minerals coming out of the dirt. And that's why they say it's like kind, because it's, below the ground, attached to the ground type of thing, but you don't actually own the land. So yeah, there's no depreciation. You've got nothing. You've got, every dollar coming in, there's nothing to depreciate it against unless you're doing something else that carries over. But the diversification and the passivity of something like that is appealing versus.
Yeah, and maybe that's where I want to kind of reiterate
the five T's or the five terrible T's or whatever.
Yeah. Tenants, toilets, trannies. I mean,
yeah.
No, yeah, I mean, I guess let me kind of reiterate back to that is, kind of talking about that diversification to get back to the depreciation. I mean, my main goal every single year is going to be buying more depreciation. When I look at a deal, it's how much am I going to be able to get in depreciation recapture out of this? Because that's a whole nother income source by itself that you can look at. When you're looking at a couple of pieces of property, it's kind of like, it's not that much. Who cares? You're probably more cash flow based, on that, or, it's how much can I cash out at that point where, when you're looking at acquiring 30, 50, 60, 100 units, how much depreciation can I buy? Because the cash, I mean, if you're looking at those kind of unit, acquisitions smartly anyways, I mean, the cash flow is going to be there. So you're really looking at how much can I depreciate out of this? Because yeah, that's a whole nother income source that you can take back to the bank that isn't going to show up on, really tax returns or anything like that. As far as, to the IRS, obviously you get to say, hey, middle finger, and then, kind of back to the banks. That's where you get the pat on the back, because it's like, hey, you got some good income there, and it can literally be depreciation based at that point. So kind of to answer your question from my perspective, and obviously anybody else can pipe in on their perspective, I'm still going to be heavy, depreciation based, but I'm getting to the point where I can kind of, look at some other diversifications that I'm not really worried about the depreciation base, because I've got majority of my basis over here that I'm going towards it. So if I, let off and said, okay, 20% of the rest of my portfolio can be in passive minerals or just in vacant land that I'm going to go throw some cattle on or something like that, then that's kind of where I'm at.
Sure. And by the way, not that I thought it was a bad idea. I was just curious what that looked like from a dollars, perspective in the deal for your portfolio. And then the other thing, like you said, if I don't know about mineral rights, but I mean, if you're buying land or whatever, gosh, you can call it like a small farm, and there's plenty of things you can write off on a farm. So, but anyway, just curious about that.
There's a reason why a lot of billionaires in real estate own 10,000 acre ranches. It's surprising how many billionaires own a crap load of land, and that land has a lot of cattle and equipment on it. Chris, does Craig have his hand up?
Well, it looks like he does. Craig?
I accidentally hit the wrong button, I guess.
All right, love it.
Oh, gotcha. We'll give you a high five anyways.
You're welcome to share.
Kind of got in late to the party, but
at least you're here at the party.
I was going to say, yeah, 1031s have been great for me. I was able to take one property that wasn't really cash flowing well, but I had a ton of equity in, and I turned it into 2 rentals, almost 3, and was able to force a great deal of equity out of the ones that I bought, and was able to write that tax off initially on my taxes to have a very low tax burden on just acquiring 2 new properties that had extensive rehab.
Nice. When did you do this, Craig? Has it been this year or was it last year?
This last year.
Yeah. So yeah, and the question he addressed yesterday was the intent. So of course the intent isn't to flip. So he said, you know, one thing you want to be careful of if you buy a property, you want to make sure you're buying it for a hold property. Now that being said, he goes, but if you get a good offer and your intent was to hold, and you get a buyer, then by all means you should, you know, execute on that, put under contract and move on. But he did say, you know, the intent is to hold these for more of a long-term investment. I do know, like a REIT, so we're actually getting ready to sell one, but you can 1031 into a REIT as well. Not that anyone here wants to invest in those right now, but it's another thing you can 1031 into. Would we want to see him in Joplin at some point? Would we get value from an hour-long presentation, and maybe bring the mineral rights guy in as well?
I think we could definitely get value from it. I mean, had I not known about 1031s, I mean, it was huge for me, and I tend on using it going forward just to keep money moving.
Yeah. Craig, when you do yours, who handles it? Do you let the title company handle it, or?
I used Iowa Equity Exchange, and they did a great job. I mean, they made everything pretty hassle-free.
Nice. Do you know what they charge you per transaction?
I think it was like 1,500
for the transaction. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was on 2 houses.
Okay.
Turning 1 into 2. So
yeah. Okay. And good service from them?
Phenomenal.
Awesome.
Yeah, Great American told me they'd be about $1,200 for the one that I'm in the very beginning processes of, but they did say there'd be more fees, you know, for multiple properties. So it would they said it would kind of like, you know, go down as you did more or something like that. But yeah, so it doesn't sound too much different.
And Levi, Nick, correct me, but I know, I can't remember the year, but it used to be if you wanted to do a real estate exchange, you had to find someone to trade with, basically. What year was that he said that all changed? What year was that? That was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think
That's what I thought
91.
Yeah.
I thought it was 91 as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So it'd be like us sitting on this call going, well, I have 123 Main Street. I'm looking to trade it, you know? So it used to be, that's how these transactions were done. Thought that was pretty cool. Like, I told Levi, I said that would make a RIA even more valuable in those days. Like,
yeah,
trying to find a place to trade property.
Yeah. And how many RIAs were going in 91?
Yeah.
Shooting 91, real estate agents were still showing up to offices to get keys because they didn't have lock boxes.
Yep. You had the catalogs in the real estate offices that you flip through for properties. Yeah.
Wasn't even a gleam in his daddy's eye yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Back in those days.
Yeah. 5 more years and I was finally a part of this earth. You want to talk about mailbox money? Or yeah.
Yes, and I thought I just saw
ahead if you want to go with 18.
It's 18.
But I was just saying, if you want to talk about 18, you clicked on it, but I was looking at 19.
19. Okay, got it. Yeah, so this would be the farmer that 1031 into what was it?
He did a mineral fund, and then he did the DST.
Yeah.
Because the DST was paying 5%, and then the oil and gas was paying him 15% a year.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, 600,000 a year.
Which is basically that 12 to 15% that I'm seeing. I've actually seen a couple that they claim that they're getting you a 20% return on. Now those are a little bit more more risky, it seems. I mean, obviously there's risk to anything. I want to put that disclaimer out there. There is risk to absolutely everything. But if I always say that if you're well educated enough, then your risk is very, very minimal. So in those regards, just kind of going back to the conversation that Dustin and I were having, you know, that's kind of that 12 to 15%. But yeah, in this situation, there was a farmer that I guess was basically just right by a development, and this developer came along and was like, "Hey, I'll give you 6 million for this place," and those are kind of the numbers with it. Got
So
3 million a piece got 3 million into the DST, and then 3 million into oil and gas, and that was the payments was 150,000 a year and 450,000 a year. So this guy's $6 million investment was giving him $600,000 a year of mailbox money.
said he got off the tractor and decided to take the offer.
Well, that's just
Yep.
it. I mean, you can't make $600,000 net a year in
On a $6 million
you know,
farm.
on a $6 million farm. You know,
Right.
I'd be getting off the tractor too. So yeah, I mean, that's where for me, I think that I'll probably be hitting that harder, you know, a little later on in life, when it's just like, you know what, sell out, not have to deal with all those terrible teas, and you know, just go set it into something like this, and go live on the yacht named Naomi, and sail with Anthony Chara in Fiji.
Mm-hmm.
Mine won't be a catamaran though, Chris.
No,
After Nick's story.
I know. Yeah.
Nick, is the air on?
yeah, the air on. I can't hear you very good. I'm sorry. Yeah,
on his tractor.
no, it rained this morning. We didn't have enough sun rays and hot weather to dry the hay out. I haven't been on a tractor yet today.
Yeah. So yeah, he did mention, you know, to vet the intermediary, because you know, here's some cases you probably dive into, but you know, not doing due diligence, and you can look at some bankruptcies from companies that were holding money that yeah, it didn't work out the best. So his whole thing was choose a company that's, like Craig said, handles your stuff well and is well vetted. So I enjoyed the night last night. Gave me some good tips.
Hey, so let's talk about, I don't actually have a question, but let's just, everybody, you know, we got 3 of you, 4 of you, or whatever on the call, I know so far has been involved in 1031s. What is anybody's experience or story that, because I haven't done a 1031 exchange yet, and I don't think it has to be scary, but you know, there is the little scary pucker factor when you're like trying to make the times happen to work out. You know, real estate transactions are so unpredictable anyway, because there's so many moving parts. Any one of those can trip up the process. It's just got to be, you know, once you start 1031, the clock's ticking to identify, and then you got to hurry up, and you only got so much longer to actually get the sale closed. And so anybody have any thoughts on that? Any close calls?
Yeah, I would say when they tell you 45 days, you better know how to backdate a contract very well.
Yeah, and you should be looking before. So like if I know I'm selling a Spring Street house or something, you know, I'm already looking for property before I necessarily go on a contract on that one. I'm not sitting around thinking about it. Like, you know, okay, I'm going to sell it. What am I buying? And so you're always pulling leads and making offers and going under contract on things. So I mean, I don't know, if you're really moving in real estate, you're probably already got some things identified anyway. Now, yeah, if you're selling the farm you've had for years and really haven't thought of real estate, yeah, coming in, going under contract and going, oh wait, what am I going to find? Yeah, that could be a big problem.
Sure.
But
I
Well, and then
took the leap of faith when I did it, and got one real good rental, and the other one I overpaid a little bit more than I wanted to, but I mean, I just realized it was pennies on the dollar to do it.
That's a point
And
too. Yeah.
Mhm.
and I'm just like, and it worked out all right. I ended up beating them down on an inspection, and just I knew that the people had already got it under contract and they were locked in on a new house, and I knew I pretty much had them to where I could beat them down to where I originally wanted it. And it wasn't unfair. They kind of said they wanted more money going into it, and my realtor basically told me not to be a dumbass, and he's like, pay the money. He's like, you'll regret this if you don't. You're coming up against your 1031.
Yep. Yeah, and in that case, overpaying made sense.
Yeah, and it was only 2,000 more than I wanted to overpay, but I'm just like, I had a number in my head and I was pretty well set on it.
I think it depends on the size of deal you're doing too. I mean, I'm no expert because I've never executed one just yet. But the if you're looking at like a $2 million deal or something like that, you've got to find something that's going to cash flow in that range. It might be a little harder than if you're trying to figure out where to place, 30 or 60 grand, because those deals are everywhere, as far as that goes. So if a closing is only taken 3 or 4 weeks, then there's a good chance you could have everything kind of settled up, figured out, and done where you've got the whole transaction done before your 45 days identification period is even hit. So, and I think that's where I'm going to be on mine. Is I've already got 3 or 4 places eyeballed. I'm just waiting until my closing becomes a little more imminent that it's going to be 100% happen before I label those as my identifiers. But I guarantee once I know I'm going to close, we're going to put a contract in and probably be closed out and done before the 45 days are even there.
Yeah, I mean, I've done it to where, like I said, I was backdating a contract by 1 day to skirt in on my 45 days. I've overpaid $10,000 on a house because I was going to have a $9,800 tax burden if I didn't. That overpaying by $10,000 led out to I don't know, it was like a $58,000 cash out 6 months later. So did I really overpay for the property? I don't know.
Depends on what you did with the 58.
Went and reinvested it. Yeah.
So that was good.
More properties. Then I mean, yeah, I've set stuff up to where I've been under contract on property and then sold property and basically lined it up same day to where I sold 1031 exchanged where, 45 minutes later I'm buying another property and I was done. So then, you can do that. You can already be under contract on a property. And as long as you are closing on that property beforehand, then as soon as I closed on it, I said, I'm identifying that this is a 1031 exchange. I identified that the property that I was closing on that day was also going to be my exchange property and did it all in the same day. So then I didn't have to worry about 45 days or 180 days or anything like that. We were just done. So I've kind of been stuck in a few of those scenarios already where, I mean, it's just one of those things to watch what you're doing. Like Nick said, I mean, when you're doing, couple $100,000 properties, it's no big deal. But then all of a sudden you start talking about $1 million stuff. I mean, you talk about a $2 million, apartment deal. If you're going after that, if you're exchanging out of properties to go to multifamily and you're going big, there's a reason that they put 45 and 180 on those. Because I've heard of some horror stories that they hit 180 days and people are crying and screaming because if they go 181, it's all over. So you got to have everybody on board at that point. Because if you don't, you can have some huge tax liability on that.
Yeah, good stuff. So is anybody on the call, last about that particular question, anybody on the call been involved in a 1031 exchange that didn't go well for them or they regretted doing it? Yeah, I didn't expect that.
No.
No, yeah.
Cool.
No, but I've been part of several that I wish I had done the 1031 exchange.
Right. Yep.
That's usually the comments that come out of that.
Yeah. So I appreciate all the information you guys are sharing.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you look at it, I mean, there's a reason a lot of people, are turning away from just doing the fix and flips, because long-term holds and then doing 1031 exchanges. I mean, if you've got a long, a year-long fix and flip that you're doing, start taking a look at a 1031 exchange. But if you're buying something that you're going to have done in 30 days and then you want to go sell it again, I mean, I haven't seen anything out there that says that you can 1031 exchange that into another. You're pretty much screwed on short-term capital gains, and I mean, you just got to eat it. So,
Right.
and unless there's somebody else out there that comes out and finds the IRS tax code that says otherwise.
Yeah. Need another loophole.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, if you can utilize a 1031 exchange, it'll make things so much easier, especially if you want to do generational wealth. I mean, if you want to pass it on to your kids, 1031 exchange all the way, because when you're dead, it doesn't matter. They get a whole new reset on tax basis.
Yep.
Yeah. Has anyone on here done anything like that inside of a self-directed IRA?
Chris?
A 1031.
Yeah. Have you been up
No.
against something to where something like that was needed?
Not a 1031 yet, but
You've been doing
will.
some stuff in self-directed,
yes,
but nothing
yes.
1031 exchange, right?
Well, yeah. So yeah, that's a good question, Andy. So like I've been doing 1031, seller finance combined with seller finance combined with the self-directed IRA.
Mm-hmm.
Now my exit strategy on those properties is going to involve me probably. No, I don't know that I'll have to 1031, because all those that will be a good question for CPA actually, because
Yeah,
the
because
profits.
I mean the whole point of being
profit,
in a
Yes.
self-directed IRA is to tax defer anyway. So do you need the 1031
Well-
in a self-directed IRA?
Right.
Yeah,
That's kind of what I'm asking.
Yeah, so my initial down payment on those properties will have to go back into it, but the profits, that will be the question for the CPA. Will the profits need to be 1031 over? And the
Right.
answer is, I'd say the answer is yes, but
Okay.
that's a really good.
Kind of what I was leading to, because that's, probably going to be my next move, is to try to go down that route. But, if we were to, have a $30,000-$40,000 return, we got to do something with that.
You know what? Though it's in that IRA vehicle, it'll flow back to the IRA. But
Right.
that's still a good CPA question.
Yeah,
But I think,
right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So it'll flow back to the IRA.
Chris, obviously on self-directed, I mean, the payments are going back into there. So obviously this is all just hypothetical. We'd want to talk to an accountant about it, but just talking out loud here, wouldn't you not have to do a 1031 exchange, because all the money has to roll back into
Right.
the self-directed anyways?
It's just a gain, just like a market gain. So yes, the answer
Right.
is no. Yes,
Okay.
that's
So it wouldn't be calculated as contribution. It would be
I
calculated
wouldn't
as
think
gain.
so, because
Yes.
if I loaned you $100,000 out of it and we just wrote up a promissory note and you kept on paying me back every month at X percentage rate, am I getting gains on that percentage rate? I mean,
Yep.
in those scenarios, I'm being told no. So like I said, this is all hypothetical. We're just having a
Oh, yeah.
conversation here.
Right,
Yeah,
absolutely.
But
no,
that's the way I'm seeing it presented, is that it's got to go back in there no matter what anyways. So if it's not taxed in there, then why would you need to exchange it?
yep,
Mhm.
it'll flow back. Yep,
Okay.
which, yeah,
Yeah,
and
the only thing I've been trying to sort out is the difference between the solo 401k and the self-directed IRA, and it seems like it's contributions, for the most part. There's the limitations on the self-directed is substantially less than the solo 401k, and so I wasn't sure about
true.
how that would be identified as a
Yeah,
contribution to the IRA or as gain.
it'll be gain. Yeah,
Like
I'm
an
sure
It'd be
of it.
gain, and
Yeah.
nothing's assessed on the gains. It's depending on the structure of the actual account that you have. It's whether the contributions are taxed going in or whether your withdrawals are taxed coming out. Right.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
Right.
Yep.
so that's where you got to, pay attention CPA wise is do I tax my money now going in so that I get my withdrawals tax free coming out, or do I get my tax benefits of putting my money in now and then be taxed when I withdraw at a certain point later on, right? And that's the difference whether you're using some sort of a Roth type situation versus a more of a traditional IRA, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Good conversation.
Very,
Thank you,
very
guys.
good. Yeah.
Dustin, what other questions you got?
So not a question, but an interesting thought that we just talked about is, hey, yeah, it's kind of easy to understand if you're a self-directed IRA, if you can make purchases with that, but any profits, any cost, anything, all that just cycles and stays right inside the IRA. And that's easy to understand. But it was interesting to think like, well, wait a minute, is this traditional or is this a Roth? And, if you did have some gains coming back in there, I never thought of that. If it was Roth, would it need to be taxed right then? Because technically it's Roth money. And that was something I never thought about before. So interesting.
Yeah.
Brandon or Dr. J got anything going on?
Is that what my thing says?
Yep.
Dr. J.
Yes.
I need to get that changed. No, great conversation. I've enjoyed it. I don't know a lot about 1031 exchanges. I've had a couple clients that have used them, but they were pretty versed in it when they did it, so didn't need me. But I think the initial point of real estate agents, this is a tool for you to just, be able to serve your clients better by suggesting and knowing a little bit about where to turn. I think that's great, and I would love to hear more.
So you'd be interested in having the speaker come to Joplin and be able to bring some more of your clients?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I think a big one for realtor is bringing your clients. Like, it could be a massive win.
Yeah, totally agree.
I think it'd be a great networking event as well. I mean, if there's stuff going on, I mean, 1031 exchange wise, I mean, you go back to the concept of 91 where everybody had to get together. I mean, it's still the same concept though. I mean, you got to know somebody that's looking to move things. You always want to have your stair step, and you want to be smack dab in the middle. You want to have, somebody to be able to sell to, and then you want to be able to buy from somebody at the same token. So, everybody wants to level up. If you're on this call, I believe that you want to level up. And so, we all have to have, kind of, who are we going to sell to? Who are we going to buy from? So, I mean, that's something with 1031 exchanges that, to be able to make that full cycle happen. I mean, I've heard of some 1031 exchanges that involve 6 different parties to make a 1031 exchange fully happen. That's kind of insane to me to think about. Nick, did you have something?
Not necessarily. No.
I just saw it light up green on you, so I just wanted to give you the opportunity.
All right. Guys, July. So we're pretty excited. We're gonna have Caleb Christopher join us. So you get some time over the next few weeks, look up Caleb Christopher and what he's doing. Um, he's really active in the like sub two creative finance. He's a transaction coordinator and he's got a team up in Kansas City that does a lot of work in the sub two community. So all those questions about what is sub two, why can I actually do this? Is it legal? Can I do creative? How do I structure creative closes? Anything like that? This guy is a genius. We saw him up in Kansas City, and he did a heck of a job presenting. And he wants to stay late, so he's wanting to come early, stay late on I think July 11th. And not only that, but you're going to be able to like bounce a lot of questions off of him that he can't answer because he's in that space. So he can close your deals, but also he's going to provide you a lot of information to understand how to get to the point where you are closing deals. So he does a lot with title companies. I mean,
we're going to be having to push to July 11th, which is the second Tuesday, not the first Tuesday of July, because the first Tuesday is July 4th.
But yeah, so I mean, the value he's going to bring is. I just, bring your questions. I had a lot of questions after the sub two meetup. It seemed like we had some questions and things around the legality of things. And I think Caleb Christopher is going to definitely put some things in perspective for a lot of people on how the transactions actually flow and what's actually involved. So it'll be good.
Are you going to be recording that?
Yeah, I think we definitely can. There's no
because I'm
reason
going to be in Africa on that day.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't see why we can't record. That'd be awesome. So yeah, we can do that. But yeah, it's going to be good, and I think the whole point is he's not going to be done after an hour. He's wanting to stay in Joplin that night, so it'll be good.
Yeah, he definitely is excited to come down and talk with us and talk about it more. I mean, as Chris said, he's doing the transactional side of this and has really nailed down into Pace's vault, and I think arguably he knows it better than Pace does.
The closing side, I'd say probably so, and
yes,
and documents
the closing side.
As much value as he brings back to the community with his documents and things, like if you're in a sub two group, he puts out a lot of content that you can just download and use. So yeah, yes. It's definitely going to be worth it.
I know we don't have a ton of time left. Sub two is just super interesting to me. I haven't done a sub two deal or anything like that, but some of the sticking points for me is not in a bad way, but my mind starts walking through it. And like, let's say you find some, I'll give you a scenario like where somebody's willing to do sub two because it makes sense for us to buy and they're kind of wanting to get out. But if you're wanting to buy from them and they want to like, okay, yeah, because I got to move to Florida. I'm here in Missouri, but my kids are in Florida. I've got to go to Florida. So yeah, I'm gonna let you sub to this. Where I don't understand is like they can't go. Their DTI is blown up now, and they can't go get a new loan in Florida on a house. So what am I missing? Like, is that true, or is it like, oh no, you're not thinking about this? Like, how are they supposed to go get another loan?
Yeah, and a lot of times what I heard Pace's answer kind of be to that is you're going to set this up through a processing center, so like a Westar, and so your payments are going to them. They're servicing the debt. So what he says a lot of times is that the seller, if you want to call them that, they need to make sure that as that debt's being paid off, that they're showing the new lender that it's kind of like you in a rental home, like your tenants are actually making your payment, right? And so Pace's thoughts are, or his theory is, you've got a servicing company that's making those mortgage payments every, maybe the first of the month, every month. And so just showing that you're linked up that way and that that mortgage is actually getting paid and serviced by a servicing company. And then he goes in depth a little bit further with it. But his main thing is, it actually is getting serviced, and it's, you never miss a payment.
That makes a lot of sense, but my question would be does New Loan Bank in Florida honor the debt servicing third-party company is saying they're happy enough to let that come off your DTI? I don't know if that's a thing or if that's too foreign to banks.
I think that it counts like if you had rented that property. So that can't,
Yeah.
through the third party makes it count like the
Mm.
income that the bank needs to see.
But a lot
Yeah.
of times there is a period that you have to go through. So it has to be showing for 6 months or a year or,
Ah.
per
Kind of a
institution
season
has their own
period.
policy
Yeah.
that they've got to see the consistency that's happening.
And that's a good point. And I think too is like there's a reason why they substitute in theory. And I think what back to what we're saying is like they're showing those payments are being made on the first every month for 6 months or a year. That may be kind of where they're at in life anyway. They've already let their home go to the new buyer. They're not ready to take on that new mortgage anyway. They're probably going to go rent. And so allowing that servicing company to kind of establish that rapport with and make those payments. Really good question though, and I know it comes up quite a bit.
Yeah, and that's fine. It's just like there's so many things that are exciting to think about the sub 2 process as much as I learned about it. But then when I keep coming back to that, there's two main sticking points, and one is to really what's the advantage for the seller, because hey, they're going to have these sticking points if they want to go get another loan. But let's say they don't and they're going to go rent, but it's like, well, hey, I'm giving you up my house and just taking over the loan. So really, for the most part, I don't see being able to get into a sub 2 deal without having to give some money down as a benefit to the seller, so they can go take your 5, 6, or 10K and go help them get life started again.
Right.
So anyway,
right. Yeah.
I just like talking about it.
Yeah. No, that's a good point though.
And then
I
there's
think that's-
subtuning vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's why you need to be there on the 11th.
I think it sounds very interesting. I love all things sub 2.
Yeah.
We'll know after tomorrow night, but I'm probably going to be subtuning a side by side in a camper, so we'll see how that goes.
Why do you want to sub 2 a liability? I'm just kidding, but you're buying liabilities, not assets.
Yeah. So the thought process here is relocating to Florida.
For who relocating to Florida?
Well, then everything would go to Florida based. So if you have a camper and you go get your Florida driver's license, you can claim residency in Florida, and I can still live here.
So I lost you. What's the advantage of you being quote unquote living in Florida?
Yeah. So taxes. Yeah.
Oh,
Lots and lots of taxes. But that means a lot of equipment's going to have to get trailered to Florida.
Got to hold it all there. Got it.
It's all got to be licensed there. And to license it in Florida, any vehicles, trailers, anything like that has to be on site in Florida at a DMV to be able to do the licensing to it to get Florida tags. But once you get Florida tags on everything, then you don't have personal property tax anymore to it.
Interesting. So do you just trailer it back home then after that?
Yep.
Really? Okay, cool. Interesting.
So yeah, if you actually go look up how much you can actually save in taxes once you have, certain number of vehicles, equipment, everything like that. I mean, what I'll pay basically $5,000. The way I'm setting it up, I'll pay about $5,000 a year for the camper and then whatever the campsite is. So how much am I going to spend on a vacation twice a year to go to Florida? The last one I did was about three grand. So if I did that twice, I might be another $1,000, $1,800 out of pocket to house something down there, and then I've got a place to go. And then at that point, if I have Florida residency, then I think my personal property tax bill last year was like $4 grand. So that's just the personal property tax side. Plus, I mean, I've got some more stuff since then, so my personal property tax basis would go down even less than that. So it'd be even more of a savings. Plus, then income tax wise, then that's a whole nother conversation that we don't have time for.
Yeah, cool.
It's state tax too, right, Levi?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's a lot of advantages to it. And the only thing is you just have to claim residency there. And so if you set up a camper there and you say, hey, this is my residence, this is this is where my mail is going to go, is to that campsite, and then you have a Florida driver's license. It's pretty simple and easy.
Awesome. Well, guys, I'm at the jet, but
You didn't invite me to it.
yeah, I know.
Where are we flying to?
Not very far. Nevada.
All right, guys.
Thanks,
Nevada.
everyone.
Yeah. See you guys.
We'll see you guys.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.